Welcome back everybody to another video from EICMA 2025. And we finally got around to getting to the Ducati stand for a couple of beautiful bikes, but we'll kick off with this one, which is the new Hypermotard V2, and it looks pretty good in the pictures, but in the flesh, my, is this a striking motorcycle. It looks fantastic. It's the latest bike to move over to their V2 platform after the Panigale, Street Fighter, Monster, Multistrada. It's a new engine, but also lots of changes across the rest of the bike, and so in this video we'll go through all of the details with everything that you need to know about it. Now, we've been lucky enough to review loads of these new V2 bikes this year. We've done the Panigale, Street Fighter, the Multistrada as well, and if you've watched any of those reviews, you'll know that I'm a massive fan of this new V-twin from Ducati. It's an 890, very lively, very free revving, very playful, and I think it will be right at home in a very playful chassis like the Hypermotard. There's two tunes of this engine. One's in the Multistrada that's a little bit less powerful. As you might imagine though, they've put the really punchy one in this bike, and so it makes 120 horsepower peak at 10,750 RPM and 94 Newton meters of peak torque at 8,250. Tim, believe it or not mate, they make an A2 version of this bike. So if you've got the money for Hypermotard V2 at that age, then you're doing very well for yourself. But also one of the key features of this V2 engine is the variable intake timing that helps them to give it a really usable spread of torque across the rev range. So they say 70% of maximum torque is available right down at 3,000 RPM. But also 80% of maximum torque is available all the way from 4,000 RPM right up to 11,000. I think that's one of the things I really enjoyed about this bike, the really strong mid-range pull that freely revs right up to the top. And so this is definitely on the hit list for bikes to review for 2026. Oh, sorry Tim, before we move, I should add there's a Terminioni accessory exhaust that adds another 4 horsepower peak, 5 Newton meters of peak torque, and also sheds 4.5 kilograms, although I guess that probably is a track system and not road legal. In fact, it's probably this one that we've got right up here. Now, before we get on to some of the chassis changes, I just want to say a massive thanks to Kalimoto for supporting the channel and making this EICMA trip possible. If you're at the show, I've got 25 golden tickets with 12 months of premium membership for free. And so if you can find me wandering around, then do give me a shout and see if I've got any left, and I'll happily hand one over. For everybody else back home, there's a 10% discount code down in the description below. So definitely check that out if you want a motorcycle-specific navigation app that has its own dedicated algorithm to seek out the best possible curvy and twisty roads, so you rarely have to ride a boring straight one. Again, it's a brilliant tool for planning tours or little local loops. And so, like I say, more details down in the description below, and a massive thanks to Kalimoto for supporting us and making all this coverage possible. Now, one of the key characteristics of these V2 powered bikes is that they're very minimal in terms of the frame, and you'll see that again with this Hypermotard. Typically, the engine makes up the majority of the structure of the bike, and that means they can keep them very light by not using a lot of frame materials, but also nice and firm and rigid. So yeah, definitely has its performance benefits. The only downside, of course, is that you lose, for a lot of these bikes, like the Monster as well, the steel trellis frame, which is a signature design feature and something I think a lot of people find quite desirable. So I wouldn't say it looks maybe quite as cool in that area, the front area, as the previous Gen 950s, but they have preserved a little bit of that style with the subframe that gets a bit of trellis on show there, a bit of red poking out from behind that plastic cover. Tim's a Monster owner and I guess a trellis fan. What do you think, mate? Good looking, or? Nah, he would have preferred a bit of trellis. I can understand that. But also you got to consider that the airbox is integrated into that frame, so that's another thing that helps them to keep it packaged nice and slender and slim. But also they've got rid of the single-sided swing arm on this particular bike as well. That's another common pattern in favor of something that's lighter and also better in terms of the handling. And so really the aesthetics have kind of taken a backseat on Ducatis over the past few years in the name of making the best possible bikes to ride. Now, thing is, you've got to kind of hand it to them. This bike was already very lively, very fun to ride. But combined with some of the other changes and the fact that the engine is much lighter than the Testa Stretta, they've actually shed 13 kilograms versus the previous generation on the standard Hypermotard V2. So it now goes down to 180 kilograms wet, no fuel. And this SP version, which has some lighter components that we'll get onto in a moment, actually comes in at 177 kilograms. Now, it doesn't have a particularly big fuel tank either. And so you're looking at, realistically, 185 to 190, which means it's, again, going to be a ridiculously fun bike. And also with that very fun new engine, I really do think this is going to be a weapon. So yeah, 2 versions of the Hypermotard still for 2026. One's over there. It's a little bit busy because a lot of people want to sit on it, but that's the base model. The one up on the plinth here is the SP, almost a bit like they want you to buy the more expensive one perhaps. But yeah, one of the key differences is the suspension. The base Hypermotard V2 gets a KYB fork and shock. It is fully adjustable on the fork. You get preload and rebound adjustment on the shock, and it's a 46mm upside down front fork, which, you know, is still relatively chunky. That said, if you are willing to pay a bit more for this SP, you'll get Olin suspension all round. It looks like it's got a low friction coating on the fork. It's also 48mm, so it should be a little more resilient to flex or resistant to flex. And also the shock on this one is fully adjustable, and so it just offers that extra little bit of fine tuning versus the standard bike. Both, I should say, get a steering damper from Sachs, and so that's not really a point of differentiation. They get the same spec in that regard. Another enhancement that you'll find on the SP version would be down here with the wheels, the tires, and also the brakes. You see the standard bike gets cast aluminium wheels. It's on Pirelli Diablo Rosso 4 tires as well, which are a little bit more road biased, whereas this one gets forged aluminium wheels, so a touch lighter, so quicker handling hopefully, and also the Corsa version of the same tires. I think this one in particular is on slicks, but that's just to show its compatibility. I think if you buy an SP out of the dealer, it comes on Diablo Rosso Corsa 4s. Or is it 4 Corsas? You know, you get the idea. Brakes on the standard bike are Brembo M4.32s. This one gets M50s, which are apparently a little bit better. I think one of the factors is the fact that they're lighter as well by, I think, 140 grams. So it all adds up. And you do get a slightly improved master cylinder on the SP version. So maybe better power, a little bit better feel, and just a touch more nuance for more performance-biased riding. Now, as with all these bikes that are being upgraded to this new V2 platform, there's a little bit of an enhancement to the tech, and they do say that some of it has trickled down from the updates that they've made to the Panigale V4. So it's a new dash, it's a 5-incher, and new switchgear to go along with it, including a pedal joystick that they've designed to make it as easy as possible to get through all the menus and settings. You've got a few different layouts for the dash as well on this one. They've got a road mode, a road pro, and also a track-specific mode. And I do believe you've got connectivity as well, so if you want your notifications and all that sort of techie stuff from your phone, then you can have at it. Riding modes are fourfold, so wet, road, sport and race, with of course a bit more support from the rider aids if you're in those more sedate modes like the wet. I believe wet also limits peak power down to 95 horses as opposed to the full 120. And as you'd expect, there's a full suite of IMU-enabled lean-sensitive rider aids, so cornering ABS, Ducati traction control, wheelie control, engine brake control as well, and also the latest gen of their up and down quick shifter. Naturally, with all these changes, you're going to have a slightly different looking bike, but I think they've consciously made a bit of an effort to make it look more modern at the front end, perhaps. It's got a new headlight shape that does give it quite a distinctive face. Like I say, the trellis frame's gone, the single-sided swing arm's gone, but overall you've got something that I would say isn't necessarily my cup of tea generally. I wouldn't normally go in for something so modern and busy and aggressive looking. but I will admit, it just looks fantastic on the stand here, and it's just one of those bikes that's certainly going to get a lot of attention if you are out riding it on the road. The standard bike comes in your typical Ducati red. This SP model comes in this white, grey and red graphics, and one is a little more subdued and tasteful maybe, whereas this one is definitely the eye-catching model that just looks more sporty and racy. And I think it's certainly the one I'd go for, just because it's a brash genre or style of motorcycle, and so you may as well go for the brash looking one. The only potential barrier to ownership for me would be the price. This one, well, the base bike is £13,495, which is a lot of money, but it doesn't sound horrendous. But the SP model is now £17,295, and it's a lot of money for, you know, slightly better brakes, some fancy wheels and some Öhlins suspension. I feel like you maybe could achieve that with the £4,000 price difference if you get yourself on eBay, but it's not really perhaps the way that a Ducati customer operates. It's an unusual bike, the Hypermotard. There are not that many big capacity sort of supermoto style bikes. It's really in a market of one, and so maybe that's how they can command quite a high price point, because there isn't really a lot of competition. Still, I will encourage you to check out the base bike as well, because I think the best things about it are going to be that new engine, and also the fact that it weighs such a lot less than the previous gen, and both those things are true of the standard bike, so it may be worth a spin, especially if you don't feel like you're going to be pushing the bike super hard in terms of the suspension response, that extra crispness in the braking and all that sort of stuff. Still, we can all dream, so let me know down in the comments below, if money were no object, which one would you go for? I'm sure I've probably got a good chance at guessing the answer. A massive thanks again to Kalamoto. Do check out that link down below if you do want to pick up that discount on their premium membership. I'll put our playlist with all of our EICMA videos on the screen now, so you can click that and have a good look through all the bikes we've covered so far. Do hit subscribe if you haven't already to see all of our videos from the show as soon as they go live. A massive thanks for watching this one. I think it's a brilliant looking bike, and hopefully we'll see you in the next video, which shouldn't be too long away.